Right. Okay. Let's move on. Deep dive time now
Yes.
into Jannik Sinner. The big breaking news from today, from Tuesday. I'm going to do a very quick update on what's happened. So Jannik Sinner, he's tested positive for a substance called I'm going to say it wrong, clostebol. This was in two different urine samples on March 10th and March 18th. He was exposed through a full body massages from his physio. There is no fault or negligence that has been found on Jannik Sinner's part. That is from the International Tennis Integrity Agency. He does lose his ranking points from Indian Wells, so 4,000 ranking points, and his prize money, which he got to the semi-finals. But yes, Chris, let's go into a bit more detail now. Where do you stand on this now, having had a bit more time to think about it? What does this do for Jannik Sinner's reputation, if anything? Does this how much does this sort of dent it, or does it not?
Well, I think we should maybe unpack a little bit more what happened in terms of the chain of events as well, because this is quite an odd one. Obviously, you mentioned the massage side of things. This is his physio who's exposed it to him, who said that he applied the over-the-counter
Mm,
spray available in Italy to a cut in his hand and then carried out these treatments on Jannik Sinner. This was accepted as an explanation. He appealed both of the failed tests, which meant that he did not get a suspension from play and was able to play in Miami and win the title. So that is obviously quite tricky for people to stomach, that this is the order of events: two failed tests in 2 weeks and then allowed to play in Miami,
mm,
without sort of the long drawn out investigation that we're
no.
used to seeing from some of these things. And it's such a different handling
Yeah.
than we've seen from the Simona Halep case, from the Tara Moore situation. And it does make you think the way that we've been told now doesn't sit right, because he's
Are
been
are there different rules for depending on your ranking? Do you
there's
feel
definitely top player
or different
privilege.
treatment? Yeah.
I think that there can be, and in the history of the sport, it does tend to be on the side of the men who do get the special treatment. Sharapova obviously didn't, but this is relatively similar in the sense that um, the nature of the performance enhancement of this is, and how much was in the system, doesn't necessarily lead it to believe that it would be doping rather than more of a medical
Mm,
thing, but
mm.
that was being put on by his physio. But I do have to say that there are some question marks here, because the reason why I have a personal issue with this is
Okay, hit
because
me. Hit me.
if you are a physio, you have an open wound. Are you then not dressing your open wound, and then you are massaging like Jannik Sinner with your cut exposed? And Jannik Sinner has also said, as part of what I read in the report, that he does have a condition that means he does tend to get scratches and some grazings on his body, and lesions, he calls them. So if you know this and you've cut your hand, you're his physio, you're very much familiar with his body. Also, professionality is that you would always cover that. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't ring true. And I think where there are those sorts of things that don't make sense, you do have to question it. I mean, we're talking Sarah
Mm,
Irani's mother's lasagna with the
yeah.
heart medication in. We're at that level of stretch here.
I mean, that's the what's the, what the sort of the jeopardy, isn't it? Because as you said, those situations, you sort of wonder like how long is it going to take to or what is going to happen? It just doesn't feel like there's any sort of consistency.
No consistency. And I also think it's part of a very smart way of handling it from the ATP perspective, as
Mm.
well as well, potentially the ITIA, but also Yannick Sinner, in terms of
He's the
don't
world
talk
number
about it.
one.
Was well, number one, but he said don't talk about it and say I'd like to move on now. But it's hard for us to move on because we have literally just found out about it, and it's a really, really bad look from the perspective of being bad optics that the world number one has failed two tests. And that is what's happened here. He failed two tests for a banned substance and was able to play in Miami. So that is very, very controversial. And what he tested positive for is derived from testosterone. But it was deemed that this was unintentional, but it is still doping, and people need to remember that. That's why he's lost
Well,
his prize money. That's why he's lost his points. But there is a part of a bigger issue here in Italy around this substance because there have been 5 tennis players who have tested positive for this. And it's also a case that's drawn the attention of journalists with Edmund Williamson of Honest Sport. We'll put the link in our description, talking about this in May, going to the Olympics, that almost the use of it is similar to the East and West German athletes, but now in Italian sports, with many, many top athletes also falling foul of this because it does allow you to recover more quickly from cuts as well. And if you are someone who's admitted to having that issue, you can see why someone might be seeing if they can use it, because in small doses, it's very hard to be picked up. Am I saying Jannik Sinner is in any way cheating at this point? No, but do I think that the story makes sense and should be accepted on face value? I do not.
Well, it's been interesting seeing some of the player reactions on social media, and perhaps the strongest opinion, surprise, surprise, has come from Nick Kyrgios, who tweeted.
Oh, he's back, is he?
He tweeted, "Ridiculous. Whether it was accidental or planned, you get tested twice with a banned steroid substance. You should be gone for 2 years. Your performance was enhanced. Massage cream. ... Yeah, nice." We also had Denis Shapovalov say, "Can't imagine what every other player that got banned from contaminated substance is feeling right now. Different rules for different players." Yeah, it's sort of going to be interesting. I feel like the reactions maybe, or the locker room maybe think now of Jannik Sinner the next time he steps into one.
I think it will be very, very mixed. I think Nick Kyrgios probably has a little bit more beef in this sense with Sinner because he is dating his ex-girlfriend. Jannik Sinner was dating Kalinskaya, who previously dated Nick Kyrgios. So there's definitely a reason there not to be the biggest fan of each other. But he also did get some of the facts wrong there because it wasn't about a massage cream. It was supposedly a treatment on the wound that then the hands were used to rub Jannik Sinner with. So it's almost more ridiculous than what he said, to be honest, than what Nick Kyrgios said. I think you have questions, and accepting excuse like this at face value so quickly and keeping it covered up will not sit well with many people. How did they
keep it covered up for 5 months? Because that is a long, long time with such a high profile player. It seems to me like, how is this not broken sooner? It feels almost like, it almost feels planned that
it does.
Okay, there's not not ever going to be a great time for this news to break, but why not we sort of, as I say, handle the situation and contain it the best we can. And it almost, as I say, kind of feels planned, which doesn't feel, as I say, it doesn't feel right.
But what happened if the result came back differently today? What if he wasn't cleared and he'd been competing this entire time at the French Open, at Wimbledon, in all of these situations? So very, very questionable. Do I think that this has been handled? I mean, smart the way it's been handled from the Sinner camp and the ATP camp, and now everything they can say is fine. But it is not fine that someone is testing positive twice and there are zero repercussions and the excuse is accepted. A lot of players will not be happy with this, and let's hope that it doesn't set a precedent.
Yeah, I mean, just finally, I think as you brought up the Tara Moore case, for listeners, yeah, she was basically put into limbo for 2 years.
Didn't get a hearing.
Paid lots of money, to kind of fight her case. Ultimately,
couldn't play during that time.
Yeah, couldn't make a living, and it really just sort of, I don't want to say ended her career, but it really derailed, her way of of living.
And they're appealing the decision that's now been cleared. They're going after her again.
Yeah, and to see it go that kind of situation to, as I say, Jannik Sinner, world number one. As
Two
I say,
failed tests.
Almost like, special treatment here. I think that's what I think a lot of people are going to be raising eyebrows out about, the fact that, say, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of consistency. Does feel like if you're a higher ranking player, possibly male player, you're going to get a favored treatment. Going to handle it as best we can, and it's going to be a completely different story if you're maybe on the
300 in the world Challenger Tour,
exactly, etc.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that person who I think was banned for cannabis as well at a very junior
Mm.
level as well. So it is different rules. It does feel like it's different rules. And I also just think that when it comes to the way this is done, blaming your team for this as well, I
Mhm.
think your team have to also be an extension of you. That is how it works. So quite often these people do also face repercussions for this as well. So it'd be interesting to see if that person does stay in his team. And if they do, I think there will be even more question marks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm sure there's lots more to come on this story, and we'll have to see how it develops. We'll have to see if the fans react to it as well, in New York at the US Open. But yeah, let's move on.